Welcome, Wargamers, to the fabulous nature walks of the mortal realms, because today we are continuing our chat on the Reign of the Brute, the second campaign book to be a part of the Dawnbringers campaign series, and part 4 of my coverage of this book. And if you want to follow along, please, I've linked episode 1 down below in the description. Start there and work your way forward. Because at this point in the Crusade, we're going to reset and refocus from the previous videos, last two I should say, in this series, and now we're going to pivot to the Hammerhal Ghyran side of the Twin-Tailed Crusade, moving through the Evergreen Swath headed north to Verdia. And even though they are part of the same, Crusade endeavor, the Ghyran side is very, very different from the Aqshy side of the Twin-Tailed Crusade. This side of the army is being led by Marshal Isilla Thoran, and followed by a contingent of Stormcast, who we've seen before, called the Redeemed. If you don't know that name, this is led by Knight Venator Tornus, who is a reoccurring character that is absolutely awesome. Essentially, these are heroes that during the Age of Chaos fell to chaos, or were twisted into it, but Sigmar still saw the light of something good, a little nugget of potential in them, and so took them up, reforged them, burned away the chaos, and turned them into Stormcast Eternals. Again, hence the name The Redeemed. And their adventures are a bit wild, so we're going to start talking about them today. One thing I'd like to add at the top of this video, if you're interested in any of this, please consider using my affiliate link for Noble Knight Games here in the States. They save you money on all of your hobby products. And while I do always support you going to your local store, a local store can't have everything, and this is a ma and pa shop online with a huge inventory of hobby supplies, models, everything you're looking for. They even sell used models, so if you're looking to get something cheap, it's a great place to do it. Big or small, every time you use that code, it helps me, my wife, our cats, everything, the channel, and it means the world to me. Also, check out Guan. I'm part of their media network. If you want any kind of tactical discussion or reviews on models or campaign books like this one, check out Guan today. Now, at the start of the Ghyran side of things, we do learn a little bit more about the destination, at least a lot more than we learn about it on the Aqshy side. We know they're headed north. They're headed past a place called the Neck, which we showed on the map earlier, and they're looking to set up a new city along the shore of the Gulf of Thorns. Along the way, they are also going to take advantage of small pockets of safety, milestones to track the progress of the Crusade, and instead of truce break, which is what Aqshy had, they are going to stop for rest at Fort Gardus. The Hallowed Knights have a massive presence in Ghyran, and it is a well-fortified zone. And not only do we have more information about the destination, we have a lot of information about our leader, who is very different than Vedra. Vedra being the military side leader of the Aqshy side, Marshal Thoran is a keen tactician and leader, specifically making her fame by understanding the environment of Ghyran, and using it effectively to even fight Nurgle. Which is interesting, using the battlefields, the movement of the seasons, capitalizing on the resurgence of life magic, all these kinds of things. She just really understands how to use the realm in warfare. And one of the things we learned about her counterpart in the Aqshy side, Vedra, is that she is very ambitious, fiery, and she's always in a rush, right? She wanted to establish her city first. But Thoran is very different from her. Her closest advisors, rather than military minds, are her scouts. She needs information. Her armies move carefully through the woods instead of at a sprint, and a few things to note about that army, because it is different than the Aqshy side. A lot of the outfitting stuff it has is the same as the other Crusade. We talk about supplies and water and guns and all the different stuff that they're carrying for multiple seasons. But the Fire Crusade was loaded to the gills with guns as a result of being from Hammerhal Aqshy side, where a bulk of the weapon forges are. This Crusade in Ghyran lacks quite a bit of that firepower, but not for lack of wanting. Because the kind of military academy fighting formations we had talked about in the last episode over in Aqshy don't work in Ghyran. They can't form the wide firing, overlapping fire arcs, the huge shield walls, nothing like that, because the forest is so tight and congested that the ranged attack simply doesn't work. When there's a fight, it happens on you. So the guns, they have less of them, but also they have less need and use of them. It's also important to keep in mind that like this trek that they are on goes through thick forests, swamps, dense jungle, all the things that are terrible for trying to move artillery through historically. Now, following the same basic structure as the Aqshy Crusade, we're given their first encounter, which happens much sooner out of the gate than the Aqshy side, and then their journey to their first milestone, meaning for Fort Gardas. So let's talk about this first encounter. The Mosshorn Fens is a region that is immediately north of Hammerhall Ghyran, and it's the frequent home of Nurgle warbands. Alarielle just seems to have a lot of trouble rooting out Nurgle from this area directly north of the city. Now, it's not like claimed by a big fortress or anything, it's just an area that Nurgle warbands pass through frequently. And as the Crusade is wading through this knee-deep water, a bunch of strange things start to happen around them, and everybody is hyper vigilant at this point. This is a known hotspot. And I'm just going to stack in here, over the course of this next little bit, remember, it is pouring buckets of rain all the time. One is a blight storm by Nurgle, who's supposed to intoxicate and poison everything, and another storm by Alarielle meant to cleanse and rejuvenate. We talked about this in the very first Dawnbringer's book, The Duel of the Rains. However, it seems in this particular region that Nurgle has the slight upper hand, because as the rain starts to fall on people, weird things start happening. For example, boils erupt from the skin, bruises, pus. And then as they're walking through, like I said, it's knee-high water, there'd be these like rogue waves of filth, like not like the whole river, but just sections of it would just erupt upward, scoop a few Dawners, and then drown them and bring them under the water. But all of those things could just seem like foul magics, right? We just have to get through it, and they didn't realize that they were in real trouble until the droning and buzzing started. And from the shadows, again, this very misty, kind of muggy place, plague drones start coming into view. And then blight lords, and then blight lords on plague drones, and plague bearers, and then finally off in the distance, a great unclean one starts to saunter towards them. All of these are chanting the name of the great unclean one, Thorpalax. Now, the battle that sets up here is brief, because the swamp region is kind of the exception that proves the rule when it comes to Ghyran warfare. The swamp itself is open enough that they can actually form a firing line, and they do a great job of laying waste to a bunch of Nurgle stuff. But that's not going to be a reoccurring thing, right? That's a one blessing of fighting in a marsh. The fighting is brief, and it's a lot like the contact we had over on the Aqshy side with some orcs, but once the Great Unclean One rolls up to the fight, like in earnest, this is when the Redeemed stepped forward. This is when you need the Stormcast, right? There's a whole bunch of fighting between the demons and the Stormcast. They're trying to act as sort of the vanguard for the human forces. Tornus himself flies up, and he does the once per game super shot that Night Venators have. And it hits the Great Unclean One right as he's swinging a sword, so it goes under his arm, like past his ribcage, straight into his heart, and he begins to crumble into nothingness. And as he dies, the plague bearers start to flicker and kind of become unstable. The mortal elements start to run away because now their morale is broken. And it was a victory, like again, the Aqshy side, it was their first victory. People should be stoked, but the problem is they cost a lot of time, equipment, and lives. And they're not even like out of their front yard. At least the other crusade made it a couple days before they got sieged. This is like out the door. So they move through the marshes for quite a while, it seems, and at a certain point they exit it and move into an open plain, sort of a basin, that is called the Dew March. It's wide, open, again, like I said before, the exception that proves the rule when it comes to Ghyran. I imagine the last battle probably had a lot of emphasis on the Fusiliers, who could like personally stand with their shields and guns and almost no artillery, whereas the open plain makes it easy to use all of your advantages. The downside is, with this nice open land, is that there is a fog that is so thick that you could cut it with a knife over the battlefield. Yeah, you have the guns and the battlefield, but you don't have the sight. And it is across this huge plain that Fort Gardists is their real stop. If you can imagine it this way from the sky, imagine a big plain, and then there's a very tight, dense forest in the middle. And that is between them and Fort Gardists. So the plan right now is to go around the rim of the forest. We'll just follow it around its side and then break off and go straight to Fort Gardists. The forest is dangerous. We don't need to go around there. We'll stay in the nice open plains where our guns work. And this starts to be like a really invigorating thing, right? Oh, this is now, we're on the easy part. We made it through the initial worst. Now we can kind of stretch our legs and relax a bit. But fate had other plans. As they're coming out of the water, they're drying off, resupplying, fixing the wagons, and then a feral roar. It's from here that we take a short change in perspective and introduce a new enemy for Thoran and the Dawnbringer's Crusade. We switch to following Tusk Boss Krazog Hornsplitter, and he has been meandering with his horde of Gore-gruntas looking for worthy fights and kills. He just kind of meandered through a realm gate and is so eager for a fight that they've been chasing down monsters here and there, but they're looking for an actual army to go up against. In fact, he's so anxious for a fight that he took all of his Gore-gruntas, anything mounted that could move fast, he took those and went off to go look for a fight, and he totally ditched all the foot-bound parts of his horde to be led by another boss, Zagrok Anvil Smasher, who will become much more important in tomorrow's episode. But understand, there's a cavalry army led by the brand new Super Pig, who in this story is named Hornsplitter. And as this Tusk Boss is sitting on top of his fancy new model, I assume overlooking the plain, he spots a ton of torchlights, and it is reflecting off the metal in the cannons. Again, it's thick fog, but that stands out, right? A crusade of that magnitude with all those lights, that's going to stand out big. And that's the roar that we hear. And so our perspective then snaps back to being our crusaders. And Thoran immediately starts calling out orders, right? As they're pulling stuff out of the water, she's like, no. Get the guns first. I don't care about the rest. The rest of the crusade stuff can sit and seep for a little bit. I don't care. Guns now. So they surround the ammo carts, the steam tanks, and they form a shield wall. Exactly like the military academies do, right? You just form a bunker and blast them. However, this does not last very long because it's not exactly a tactic that the academies were ready for when they are struck by a panoply of pork, because these Gore-gruntas don't just hit the line, they go through it. Like, they literally etch. There's so much inertia and weight that when a Gore-grunta hits this line, they just go through it. And so they're kind of like strafing almost the cities of Sigmar army through their defensive measures as they're trying to make them. Thoran is seeing, oh, there's this epic pig with two podiums on the side so orcs can stand on each side and kill them without really needing to hold on to anything. That's pretty baller. We should probably weld some of those to our tanks, I'm not lying. And in short order, it becomes clear to Thoran that the shield wall is just not working, right? They're killing orcs, but nowhere near enough. And so she begins shouting new orders. And this is interesting because all of the fighting we saw from Vedra, she gave the command, and that's exactly what happened, right? Everyone followed her command to the T. She gave the right order at the right time. Thoran makes mistakes, but she is demonstrating that she is very canny. She reacts quickly and responds appropriately. So her new orders are to split up this formation into a wide, staggered one. This way, when the pigs charge in, there are gaps. You can dodge to the side, and basically it reduces the casualty numbers because the Gore-gruntas can't just plow through all of you. Now you're spread out, and the fire is still coming from all different directions. It also has the benefit of kind of showing the Stormcast where the pigs are being funneled through. Those open gaps that the Gore-gruntas are coming through are being raked by Stormcast Eternal fire, either arrows from the Night Venators. You also have prosecutors mentioned, which I thought they forgot prosecutors existed as a model kit, but they're hurling javelins of lightning down. It's pretty cool. And it's at this point that those Stormcast really kind of take the lead in the combat, right? Rather than just being about Thoran and her stuff, her orders are keeping her people alive defensively, and the Stormcast take the offense. They start soaring down and basically just tagging the orcs, trying to intimidate them, get their attention, and lead them away from the actual crusade. And with this, the orcs seeing the Stormcast as the better fight, they take the bait. They kind of leave the crusade alone, and they start chasing after these Stormcasts on wings who are harrying them. And at this point, the Stormcasts are leading the orcs in one direction, with some of the best Gore-Gruntas in Hornsplitta's army being dead, and Thoran has a choice to make. Because as we described the battlefield before, they could stay on their planned path, but it would expose her right side to the Ironjaws should they rally. Like I said before, they were going to go along the perimeter of the forest. Well, that would leave their entire side open. Should this exact Ironjaws army come, they could charge right through you. So we don't want to do that. The other option is that the scouts say that they can probably find a way through the Grim Bark Forest, which is what this is called, and that way they could go in there. It would give them a lot of defense from Gore-Grunta charges because there's just not enough room for them to gain momentum. But of course, it has its own dangers, right? Their current path has them marching with this forest on one side, but with their army exposed. And so with that, Thoran orders the crusade into the forest, hoping to cut through it and make it to Fort Gardas faster rather than going around. And that's not a small decision. There's a reason that they had planned to go around the forest. There's a lot of legends and rumors about this place. It's dangerous, it's full of the most massive creatures, you don't want to go in there. And that being said, the guns did so little to the Gore-Gruntas that were all plated in that big armor that without the Stormcast Eternals leading the other part of the army away, the crusade is kind of defenseless. So she's thinking, okay, they took away half the orc army. If the other part, the foot sloggers or the remaining Gore-Gruntas come back, we just can't fight them. So let's go into the forest and get whatever defense we can. And this is where our scene closes for the beginning of the Ghyran crusade. So as we do with all these, let's move into why is this cool? I'll say that Thoran is much more of my kind of leader than Vedra was. Although Vedra is cool, I praise the depiction of her. Thoran is more cautious, attentive, and wants to understand the battleground and the environment just as much as the battle, or sees it as a key piece of the battle. And I like that. It makes her a very canny leader. One of the cool new features of the Cities of Sigmar Battle Tome is the order system. Your heroes can give orders to various units. And it wasn't a huge representation of that, but I like the idea of just she's shouting different orders and different things happen on the battlefield with immediate results. And it's just kind of a fun, lore to game interface here. One thing I did want to note there, and this kind of stuck out to me, for how big of a problem Nurgle was in the first book, they really breezed right past him in this one, right? It's cool. The fight scene with Nurgle, it was cool. I like Nurgle stuff. It's a lot of fun. But, he was the big bad in the first book, and this time they're like, we're going to walk through this swamp. Nurgle's like, no, we're walking through this swamp. And they beat the Nurgle, and they just kind of keep going. I was like, oh, well, seems like you guys could have done it the whole time. I know it's not true, but it's kind of funny to me. And it does seem as though they had a rougher start than the Aqshy one, though. And that's a big thing, is that they tripped immediately out of the gate. And they had some pretty epic battles. The Ironjaws stuff is really fun. And don't worry, they show back up in force in the next section. It's a big ol' scrap, and I think that you are going to enjoy it. So friends, tell me what you thought of this. Tell me what you think about the Ghyran side. Would you rather be in the Ghyran Crusade or the Aqshy one? As I said before, I still vote Aqshy. Even seeing how their story ends, I don't know. I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. No one has a good day at the end of this series. But I'd like to know which environment you would like to fight in or whatever. I'd rather have Thoran as my leader, but be in the Aqshy environment if I could have my scruples. So anyway, friends, let me know your thoughts down below. I'd love to read them. And I'll catch you next time. Happy wargaming.